Drip, 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 like a leaky faucet that won't stop. Accusations of inappropriate sexual behavior seem like they're about to drown Donald Trump. Today's New York Times, you probably know, features the stories of two women who say he aggressively groped them. Jessica Leeds described what she says happened on a plane 38 years ago.
He was like an octopus. It was like he had 6 arms. He was all over the place. If he had stuck with the upper part of the body, I might not have gotten that upset. But it's when he started putting his hand up my skirt.
The article also had allegations by a receptionist from a company with which Trump did business. A reporter from People magazine and a woman from Florida have also come forward with similar stories. These charges come just days after Trump was revealed speaking in vulgar terms about how he would grope and kiss unsuspecting women. They also come after this exchange in last Sunday night's debate.
I have tremendous respect for women.
Have you ever done those things?
Women have respect for me. And I will tell you, no, I have not.
This morning, Trump tweeted that the Times story was a total fabrication. The coverage of potential sex scandals is pushing aside the WikiLeaks of unflattering emails related to the Clinton campaign, and Hillary Clinton is trying to keep it that way.
This latest incident about, how he treats women, well, he's doubled down. He doubled down on his excuse that it's just locker room talk.
Joining me are two veteran journalists who have witnessed the seamier side of politics from time to time. Ann Compton, who covered 7 presidents for ABC, was the first woman assigned by a network to cover the White House. She's spending the semester as a fellow of Harvard's Institute of Politics. I'm thrilled to meet you, Ann. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Tom Fiedler, I'm glad to see you too, Tom.
Yeah,
He's currently the Dean of the College of Communications at BU, formerly served as the executive editor at the Miami Herald. Good to see you both. Debates then and now. Let's start that. You were on the panel in '88, Bush and Dukakis. The panel in '92, Bush and Clinton.
Perot.
And Perot, I forgot, very important. Those were so civil in my eyes compared to the incivility of now. Part of the blame, a huge part of the blame, obviously goes to the contestants. Is the media partly at fault for how out of control these have
Those
become?
were dinosaurs. They had 3 journalists plus a moderator who just kind of kept a stopwatch. And the idea that we worked so hard to present 90 minutes of actual issues. There were some questions that I think you really do have to peel back the layers and let somebody's personality and leadership qualities come out. But that's a dinosaur compared to the one-on-one, one moderator, or when you get to a town hall, where the citizens' questions can often be the most interesting.
Did the press let these get out of control? I mean, these candidates were pretty wild, too. Many of them were.
Yeah.
But could the press have done a better job of keeping things under wraps?
I don't know. It's hard to, I certainly wouldn't criticize any of the moderators there. In fact, we wouldn't have this discussion today with Trump had it not been for Anderson Cooper insisting that that question get in there. So I think the moderators are doing the best they can. But I actually like the dinosaur format, and I think that the debate itself became less substantive when it went to what would seem like the town hall format, and where you have Donald Trump strolling around the stage. We had Al Gore doing the same thing with George W. Bush. I think something was lost with that format.
You weren't arguing
that. I would argue with that. I want to know, I like long campaigns where you can watch these candidates and you don't get just a first blush, but you get to know them so well over a year. You want a candidate who's going to have the leadership qualities and the character, because every president I've covered has been measured by what way he treats crises, not that campaign.
You know what they call people like you? Masochists. That's what they call people like you. You've both been parts of major moments that I think were game changers. You were on the panel in that debate when Bernie Shaw turned to Governor Dukakis in '88 and said, Governor, if Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you favor an irrevocable death penalty for the killer? You confronted Gary Hart in a dark alley in 1987 about his relationship with Donna Rice. So let's start with you. My understanding is the 3 panelists, all of whom were women, didn't like that Bernie Shaw question,
Bernie
correct?
Shaw came to my hotel room that morning. We'd only had maybe 36 hours to prepare. We'd just been chosen. And he told us, he only got one question at the beginning, and he told us, and it gave us chills. We begged him 3 times that day.
Because he named Kitty Dukakis? Was that what troubled you?
Because he had... For two things. One, because he used the name of the Massachusetts First Lady, but two, because it was a gotcha question. He wasn't going to change his position on capital punishment. The next question went to George Bush, where Bernie got out as far as, if you die between the election and the inauguration, can Dan Quayle really become president? And it was the reaction of the candidates. George Bush went, when he heard it, if you die, he went, Bernie! And Michael Dukakis gave a very straightforward, technical answer, and that's what killed him.
Did that Gary Hart thing, and obviously, what was it, X number, the next morning your paper had it on the front page, what is it, 5 days later, Gary Hart, who was the prohibitive front runner, was out of the campaign. That did change sort of the whole approach of the media in this country to the personal behavior.
I don't know if
of
it
candidates.
changed
Did it
the
not?
media's behavior, but it's certainly in the public's consciousness. It was a line was crossed.
Were you conscious of that when you were doing it, or is it all in retrospect? You look back
No,
and
we were quite conscious of that, and had thought deeply about whether this actually was one of those actions that had moved from being the private behavior into the public sphere. And our view was that I hate to sound like another network's slogan, but we felt, look, our job here is to report what we've seen, and we will let.
Were you troubled by what he did?
No, not at all. I was covering the White House at that point. And then look to in 1992, when during the primaries, when the candidate's wife sat next to him on 60 Minutes defending him on the idea that she could stand by her man. Bill Clinton went through all this early in the primaries.
Speaking of that, could Bill Clinton get elected in 2016? I mean, if all the same set of facts, all the same, the Jennifer Flower, everything, could he get elected in 2016?
Yeah, I think he could, because we are looking in 2016 at two of the most unpopular candidates nominees that we've ever had in modern history, where there are some voters still sitting home saying, I don't want either one of them. How out of 230 million voters we come up with
So
those
even with
two?
24/7 scrutiny, which was much more intense than Bill Clinton endured in 92 and then subsequently, you say he survived. Could he survive a presidential campaign, Tom Fiedler, in your
I
mind?
don't know that he could. I mean, given we know what his popularity is there, but I think that there has been, with Bill Clinton even, a drip, drip, drip post the whole impeachment process. And I think given an opportunity for people to step back and say, all things now being considered, I don't think that he would be electable today.
I want to end this with one of my pet issues where I have find very little agreement. I think the press, much of the press, has disgraced itself with how it's treated Donald Trump in recent times. We just put up a Shorenstein poll last night saying that Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times, 60 to 70% positive or neutral in 2015. And now his surrogates can't get a word out of their mouth without interruption. My sense is that it's makeup time. The press decided they were enablers in 2015, so they're going overboard in the opposite direction in 2016. You don't agree with me?
I'd argue it is style, more aggressive questioning, more fact-finding, more fact-checking. And we live in a much faster age. Everything's boiled down to 140 characters.
So do you think it's makeup time for them? Are they crossing the line in 2016?
I don't think they're crossing the line at all, but I do think that they're in a situation where they cannot do that, the pseudo-balance idea, you get to say this and then I'll find somebody to disagree. It's there is no equivalency here. It's when there is a statement that we know is challengeable on the facts, I think that the media's responsibility is to step in. And yes, it puts the particularly broadcast media in a situation where they appear to be much less respectful of the process and more aggressive. I think it's necessary, and I think it's a direct result of the behavior of the candidate here.
Ann Confidence, great to meet you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Jim.
so much. Tom, it's
Jim,
great to see you.
always.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you.
Really appreciate it. Now, an important development on a story we've been following here at Greater Boston for more than a year. It's the case of former House Speaker Sal DeMacy, who is serving the 5th year of an 8-year federal prison term for taking a kickback and is in deteriorating health due to cancer of both his tongue and prostate. You may recall seeing his wife Deborah here on the show, along with attorney Nancy Gertner, former judge, making the case for compassionate release.
It's not an easy thing to deal with, but I love him very much, and I don't want to see him suffer, and I feel as though I'm doing the right thing by fighting for his rights.
Compassionate release can be granted after the Bureau of Prisons files a motion in federal court indicating a patient is sick, an inmate is sick, has served a significant portion of their sentence, and is not considered a threat to public safety. We've asked a number of high-ranking public officials here their thoughts on the case, and most emphatically support DeMacy being released.
He meets the factors for compassionate release. He's over 65. He's got serious medical conditions. He can't even eat. He has surgeries every month, multiple cancers, and he's served more than half his sentence, which is what the federal guidelines allow.
Sal has been sick a couple of bouts now of cancer, and that's why the intent of this program was set up for compassionate release for prisoners that need that ability.
I think it's long overdue. I think that somehow somebody's trying to prove a point that they can be tough on white-collar crime.
I was obviously the Attorney General, the Mayor of Boston, and Congressman Capuano. I also asked Governor Baker, who said compassionate release would be a hard sell for him, but he would probably support moving DeMacy to a prison closer to home. Now, something that's critical for this type of release, the support of the prosecutor. U.S. Attorney Carmen Ortiz in this instance. We've learned that this afternoon a motion was filed in federal court with Ortiz's blessing, requesting DeMacy's early release. We'll continue to follow the story and plan to have both Debbie DeMacy and Judge Gertner here on Monday's show.